General George S. Patton was a three-star general at the time. Boy, what pride, huh? Feeling that I had. He is one of the greatest warriors of World War II, and we were going to fight under his command. Out stepped Patton, sparkling, dapper, walked very briskly, stepped up on the half-track, looked at us, gazed at us, from left to right, and said, "I sent for this unit because I heard you were good, and I have nothing but the best in my outfit. I want you to go up there and kill them goddamn Krauts. I want you to give them a licking. I don't care what color you are, as long as you go up there and kill those Kraut son of a bitches." As he completed his speech, he looked me straight in the eye, with gray eyes. And he said, "Listen, boy, I want you to go up there and shoot up every goddamn thing you see. I want you to see haystacks, church steeples, graveyards, old ladies, children, any damn thing that you see. This is war."
Staff Sergeant Johnny Stevens of Company A kept a diary of those days in Europe.
November 5th, 1944. Well, here we are, somewhere in France, and we're supposed to go on our first mission today. In a couple of more hours, I have smoked 2 packs of cigarettes.
On its first day in action, the battalion took its first casualty. Their commander, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Bates, was seriously wounded. And the entire crew of Harvey Woodard's M4 were killed. These pictures had been taken just the day before the battle. The tank hadn't been hit. The men seemed to be unharmed. They must have been killed by the concussion of a shell burst directly overhead.
Yeah, the first outfit that we fought with was the New England Division, the Yankee Division, the White D, 26th Division. And first time that I got wounded was at Hill 309, that was in France. And it was an early morning attack. And my tank, being a platoon sergeant, my tank, I was in the lead tank. And we had been told by the recon boys there was nothing out there except heavy machine gun fire. But when we got in the middle of the field, we found out that they had anti-tank guns. They also had bazookas. And they started knocking out my tanks, one behind the other. And then my tank got hit. And I ejected myself out of the tank. I hit the ditch. Then they started raking the field with machine gun fire. And then some sergeant from the 26th Division, he yelled over me and he said, "Sergeant, you hit?" I said, "Yeah, man." He says, "It's bad." I said, "I'm hit hard as hell." Just like that. So he rolled over to where I was, and I had blood running down my combat jacket. And he took me and pushed me over the bench, over the embankment, and threw me on the other side, out of the line of fire. Then he raised up to come over the bank with me. And as he raised up, German about maybe 10 yards away in the bushes, took a brick gun and cut him half in two. He killed him. See, I never knew who that sergeant was. All I know, he was from the 26th Yankee Division, who we were supporting at the time. And that's the only thing I know.
E.G. McConnell, retired now, recreates those days on the Western Front. He has good reason to remember.
We were advancing in this town. All hell broke loose. They fired a HE shell that hit. It's all I remember till sometime after dark when I came to, out in the ditch next to my tank, burning like hell.
Then all of a sudden we heard over the radio, we had the Germans hit the first tank, the last tank, and it was hitting Germans all over the place. So we backed up, ran around to the back of the town, and we laid nothing but fire on them, 50 caliber, 30 caliber, and 76 millimeter, all in the HE. No armor piercing HE, until we ran out of ammunition. And on the radio I could hear them saying, "Watch out for this, watch out for that." Then I heard them say, "EG say, I've been hit." I said, oh my God, I hit my man.
When I went to pull my helmet off of my head, I felt a sharp pain, and I think I passed out again because the shrapnel had lodged in my head, halfway in the helmet, and through into my skull. Well, anyway, this young white fellow who was in the infantry, he grabbed a hold of my helmet for me, and he held on to it, even though he was much, much more seriously injured than I. See, I was coming and going. I wasn't conscious all the time. And he saw that we were evacuated together. And this is sort of odd, you know. Here's a white soldier looking out for his black combat companion. And anyway, we were evacuated. We went back to 100 General Hospital in Bar-le-Duc, France. I went through surgery and all like that and wound up on a ward. I was the only black on the ward. This two-star general came down to visit this hospital, and the ward must have been about 100 feet long or so. And he walked all the way down on the side. Good morning, Corporal. How are you? How do you feel today? Hello, Private. What unit? When he got to me, he hesitated for a moment, looked over at me, and here I had my head wrapped from a head injury. And this man looked at me and says, "What's wrong with you, boy? Got the claps?" Man, I was devastated. My buddy next to me, young white guy, he looked up. He was in a cast from his neck all the way down, both feet, bar cross in front of both feet. He said, "Hey, General, if he got it from your mother. Now send me back up to the front, you son of a bitch." He was out of war altogether. He was so broken up. That's why he could say it. Well, this hurt this guy, but it didn't hurt him nothing like the hurt that I got that day. Later on that day, here comes this same bum walking through the ward. I saw him coming. He's giving out the Purple Hearts. I had a comic book. I didn't even read the damn things, but I just put the comic book up my face like I was reading the thing. And he went through the ceremony and then handed it to me. I didn't even reach for it. Just let him put it down on the bed. Boy, I'm telling you, my country 'tis of the sweet land of bigotry.
The German commanders had assembled 28 divisions, supported by hundreds of tanks, along a weak spot in the Allied offensive. On December 6th, they attacked, stretching and nearly cutting the Allied line. The Battle of the Bulge had begun.
But to me, I'd say the German soldier was the best piece of fighting machinery that the world has ever seen. They were dedicated the same as we were. They believed in what they were fighting for. And when a man is fighting for a belief, it's difficult to change his mind. They get hit. The Russians, the Americans, the British, the French, everybody was hitting them, and they kept fighting. See, the German soldier was like a robot. See, that's what made him good. The American soldier, just opposite. They had cooks, bakers, newspapermen, street sweepers, they just put us all together, and they made an army overnight almost.
Patton's Third Army, accompanied by the Black Armored units, raced northward to Bastogne, where the German advance had surrounded an American airborne division.
December 16th. Well, it's here. Great German counterattack. Clearing out and going north to Belgium tonight. It will take 2 days. It's so cold and the snow and ice is making it tough on tankers.
You know, this has been a memory that has lingered in my head for over 40 years. It's a scene somewhere up in Belgium around the time of Bulge. Man, it was one cold blast up there. Beautiful country, but really couldn't appreciate the beauty. Of course, behind every tree, a snowbank, we knew it could be very, very deadly. I'll never forget the drone of the tank engines. And the tracks were sort of quiet because it was on the snow. Just advancing infantry alongside our tanks as we rounded this hilly country and went about our business. These are parts that really omitted from the movie Patton. We were so very, very much involved in the Battle of Bulge. Yet no mention has ever been made of it. About the Black Tankers, the Black Panther Battalion. The true Black Panthers.
The day after Christmas, General Eisenhower called for volunteers from black units. Men trained for combat, but who were assigned to labor and support battalions. Thousands came forward. The only African-American general in the U.S. military, Benjamin O. Davis Sr., had been brought out of retirement to figurehead the black contingents.
Brigadier General Benjamin O. Davis arrived. He made a complete inspection tour despite the weather. These scenes are in Belgium. He looked over everything that had to do with Negro troops.
As the Battle of the Bulge wore on, the fighting and the dying were becoming integrated. Everything else remained separate.
Well, it was into this battle that the 183rd had its commitment. We were told to go to a small town in Belgium, a place called Montalange. It was small, but that was a very strategic place. Because you see, there was a bridge there. A bridge that had been blown apart by the enemy, and our responsibility was to rebuild it. We had to do this, you see, because further up the highway, about 15 kilometers, there was another small town, a place called Bastogne. And in Bastogne, there were American soldiers who had been trapped. Members of the 101st Airborne Division, they had been encircled by the enemy, and their lives were in jeopardy. They had to be rescued, you see. And so my unit, the 183rd, had its work cut out for it. We had to rebuild that bridge. We had to do it right away, so we began to work. We worked night and day. In spite of the weather, we worked. In spite of the strafing by the airplanes that would come down daily and machine gun us. In spite of the shelling of the 88 howitzers, we worked on that bridge. We finished it. We finished on time. And all of those resources, the tanks, the guns, the men's, and everything else came down. They went up, crossed that bridge, and went up to Bastogne. And they rescued those men. That was a glorious day. Yes, it was. I used to remember as I went around Germany and Belgium, doing what we had to do, I honestly elated. I felt 10 feet tall because I saw the 761st Tank Battalion on the roads, doing what they had to do.
I understand that now we are just about to approach the village of Chile, where I feel that this was, I was informed through your history that this was the first tank-to-tank battle that took place in the small village just outside Bastogne.
In Chile, on the 5th of January, units of the 761st, hurrying to the relief of Bastogne, ran into a superior force of German tanks. Casualties were heavy.
We started in this large clearing, and we were going through this clearing, and the snow was about 3 to 4 feet deep. It was heavy, and we were getting fire from all over, and my tank was going forward. We got hit. Smitty was in there. We had a fella in there, was our driver, Little Willie DeVore. He got killed in the tank. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember correctly, his head got almost taken off when the shell hit the tank. Smitty and I got out the tank, and another fella, and we started trying to do the best we could to get to the woods. And this clown Smitty, he was hollering, I was ready to stop. I was exhausted, shooting at anything I could see or move or whatever. And this clown Smitty was hollering, remember the Savoy. You know how we was doing up in the Savoy and clowning and whatnot, and we were crawling on our butts and hands and fingers trying to get to the woods to try to get out of the enemy fire while they were shooting at us.
Outside town, the veterans found a farmer who remembered the battle.
But after a few days came the tanks. Across the wood, across the directing and with the trees, everything. And then American forces with cannon, big artillery on the village. Already, the 6th of January, artillery, barrage.
Right,
Artillery, yes. And after that, American forces came into the village, but there were big struggle.
When these tanks come across there, it's our tanks.
Yeah.
Our tanks.
They were our tanks.
There were 18 American tanks destroyed and several German. A great battle of tanks.
After 5 days of bitter fighting, the 761st captured the town and closed the Brussels-Bastogne highway. One of the tanks still stands in Bastogne, a memorial to the Liberators.
And the reason why delay was important was because it was a way to cut the advance of the Germans in their particular move to confiscate all of the equipment that was on the east coast of France.
We broke the link of the Germans going to the coast, and then we also broke their link. We isolated a lot of their troops within certain areas to where they couldn't join back up to make a major force.
But I'm here to tell you that my unit, the 183rd, paid a heck of a price for that glory. I know about that, you see, because I stood in the snow. I stood in the snow and I looked at the gray registration trucks on which the bodies of so many of my friends were placed. And it was the beginning of my saying, what are you doing here? You could end up that way. What are you fighting for? You can't get a drink of water at a fountain. You can't get a meal in a restaurant. They won't even let you have a seat on a bus. So what are you doing here and what are you fighting for? I was angry. Deep down, I was an angry young black soldier, angry at my country for using me, putting me out there to fight and maybe even die to preserve the rights and privileges that they were telling me I wasn't good enough to enjoy back home.
The little town Hermie, about 10 kilometers outside of Liège. And we were billeted in these people's homes. And we stayed with a family, Rodelay. And they were just loving type of people. So then when we get in Liège, I looked up the family in the telephone book. The next day, when the bus pulled up, they were naming people. There's Rags, and there's Jack Gilbert, there's Horace, you know. It was something that stirred the soul.
On the day of liberation in 1945, the Radelays buried a bottle of apple brandy on their farm. Today, they dug it up and opened it to toast their old friends.
Silence, please. I'd like to tell the reason why we're in this town tonight. Back in 44, they were dropping buzz bombs on this place. So they sent the 761st Tank Battalion in here to secure the town. And this particular house we're in, Horace Jones, he stayed in this house. And so they remembered him, so that's the reason why we are here today. Now maybe Horace wanted to say something or not, I don't know.
It was a pleasure to be with the Rodelay family. They treated us very nice. They invited me and all of the friends to come out to this beautiful home, and they are showing us a lovely, lovely time. And I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart.
I'll say a toast. May God continue to bless this home, and may the fellowship which we have established never end.
Amen.
Amen.
Long ago, young African American soldiers who had known only American society and a segregated army were received here gratefully, accepted as people, and welcomed as heroes. A lot of things had changed back home since then, but the memory of that long ago winter was still fresh. In March 1945, the 761st Tank Battalion was attached to the 7th Army, spearheading the American drive to the Rhine. They were among the first American battalions to break through the Siegfried Line into Germany. Resistance was fierce.
We came into this town, and we stopped the tanks, and everybody would pile out of the tanks, you know, and we were searching the houses and whatnot. And I hit this house, and we went into the door, and there was some German people in there, and they said, come on, you know, they were friendly. And I happened to glance at this, I saw something behind the door. So I slammed the door closed real fast, and this big German officer was standing up behind the door, and I stuck my pistol up in his face. And I said, surrender, you know, hollering surrender and whatnot. He said, he spoke very good English. I don't have to surrender to you damn niggers. And when he said that, I slapped him right across the mouth, and teeth jumped all over the place. And I took his German Luger away from him and threw him outside. And that was the issue. That was the whole issue of that thing.
Well, we crossed the German border yesterday, holding the high ground. And whoever said the colored soldiers can't fight is a damn liar. Because the guys in the infantry told us they would rather have us with them than the white soldiers.
Black soldiers shared the fates of their white fellows. For their own propaganda purposes, the Germans filmed black soldiers taken prisoner in the battle for Europe. The German armies were on the defensive, but not yet beaten. And in Germany, American GIs who had experienced segregation and hatred at home were to be brought face to face with racism on a scale they could not have imagined. Buchenwald concentration camp, Germany, 1991.
You see now, you see nothing. But this camp, at one time, had over 120,000 inmates.
In this camp here?
This camp. 120,000 inmates. This is the game.
This is the game.
Benjamin Bender was 16 when he was locked behind this gate.
Here we have a sign in German. Jedem das Seine. Everybody, everyone for himself. So there is no brotherhood here.
Right.
Just the way it is. You by yourself.
Yeah.
You die or you survive.
Throughout the battle for Europe, the Jews and other unwanted populations of the German Empire were being rounded up and herded into concentration camps. Tens of millions had already been killed. The Nazis continued the transport, internment, and slaughter, even as the Allied armies closed in. Benjamin Bender's parents would not let themselves be taken by the SS.
My parents committed suicide. I was supposed to go into a bunker with them, which I built with them. And there was food for about 2 weeks. And then my father has cyanide, and my mother has cyanide. I didn't know that. I was trying to stay with them in this bunker. They chased me out, and I was crying. I say, why are you doing this to me? rejecting me, your son. Well, they didn't say me that that's true, but they said, look, you're young, and you might so survive. My father was in his 40s, my mother was 38. And I was very reluctant, and I was really crying. And I have to leave the place to join a group of the workers who went to the camp. And they took cyanide. And this was in summer of 1943. My brother knew about this. I didn't know this. He took the secret to his head. He never told.
How did you find out?
After.
Months flew by and it was 1945. It was the spring of the year. We were winning the war. And it was at that juncture that we received orders to go down to a place in Germany called Weimar. We went down in great haste, and the war was raging all around. But our units were chasing the enemy. We set up our tents in the bivouac area, and it was at this point that the lieutenant came to me and two others in our unit and said, "Come with me." Well, we got aboard the truck. But I asked him the question. I said, "Sir, where are we going?" And he said, "We're going to a concentration camp." And I didn't know what he was talking about. I had no idea what a concentration camp was all about. You see, in all the training that I had received, and we had sessions where we would sit down in small groups and discuss why we were fighting the war, but no one ever told me what had been going on in Europe since the 1930s. But on this day, in April, in 1945, I was to have the shock of my life, you see, because I was going to walk through the gate of a concentration camp called Buchenwald.
When the American planes surrounded all over Buchenwald, the Germans became very nervous. They started to shoot by the gun machines all over, and we have started to run out of the barracks. Where to? Towards the gate. Near the gate there was a heap of corpses. I almost fainted, and I was found among this heap of corpses just after the gate was broken and the first American jeeps of the General Patton's army division entered into Buchenwald. For the first time in my life, I saw new kind of uniform, but also blackface. For me, it wasn't a surprise, blackface, because we were told that there is a continent named America, which in my eyes was a part of a dream of liberation, part of a dream of redemption. And America was for me, an eye of a boy less than 8 years old, a different planet.
And you came through the gate like a wave, like a rushing river, and you moved in all different directions. And the entrance to the gate was covered with bodies, hundreds of bodies. People were covered with blankets. Some are still alive, some are clinging to life. And I recall some of them were leaning on the left elbow hand and stretching their hand to you. "Brother, give me your hand. I am dying." And you were crying. I couldn't understand why you were crying, because I never cried in Buchenwald.
When I walked through those gates, I saw in front of me what I now refer to as the walking dead. I saw human beings human beings that had been beaten and starved and tortured and denied all the basic things that make life meaningful. There they stood in front of me. They were skin and bone. They had skeletal faces with those deep-set eyes. Their heads had been clean shaved. And they were holding on to each other for stability. I had never seen anything like this before in my life. And they began to say things in many different languages, and I didn't understand. And one man held out his hands, and his fingers were webbed together with scabs from the sores that came from malnutrition. And suddenly they began to move forward. And when they did so, I backed away. But then I had a chance to stop and think. And I said to myself, my God, what is this insanity? Who are these people? What have they done? What was their crime that anyone would treat them this way? I didn't know. The young man who spoke very good English, he was of Polish extraction, I believe. He began to tell us about Buchenwald. And he said that these people were Jews. They were gypsies. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. They were Catholics. They were trade unionists. They were communists. He went on with a litany of names of groups that had been placed here in the concentration camp by the Nazis. Because the Nazis said they were not good enough. Therefore, they could be destroyed, terminated, murdered. I couldn't understand this. I had nothing in my background that would help me to understand this. I couldn't get a handle on things. I just couldn't.
I had the driver to go straight through the gate because the gate was closed. And when we hit the gate, it went down with the tank. And after the gate fell down, we got more machine gun fire. And on the farther end of the camp, there was like a large barn door. And these SS troops in their black uniforms was firing on these here people that were trying to come out. And there was fire behind them, and they were burning, and you got that smell of flesh. I eliminated, had the bow gunner shoot at the machine gun nest, and there was another machine gun on the side, and the 50 caliber, which I shot from the top of the tank, eliminated that. And after that, it was finished. There was no more shooting. Then the people started coming out and still crawling over the burning bodies and smoke and bodies that were shot in this doorway. And they were coming out just crawling over skin, bones.